Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back, because today I'm going to give you guys my ranking of the entire Indiana Jones franchise from least favorite to favorite. There are 5 movies here, 4 of them from Steven Spielberg, and the recent one from James Mangold. And to give you all some context here, I love Indiana Jones. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. It's the quintessential action and adventure series that defined the adventure genre. And Indiana Jones is a character I love ever since I was a kid. He's one of my favorite movie characters of all time. My favorite role from Harrison Ford, who is also one of my favorite actors of all time. And so I've loved this character since I was a kid. And just to see him in all these adventures, it's always so fun to see and go on an adventure with Indiana Jones himself. And I love what Harrison Ford has done with the role. And so as just what these movies have done for the character. And so before I give you my ranking, let me know down below in the comments, what's your ranking of all 5 Indiana Jones movies? I'd love to know that. And with that said, let's get started. In 5th place is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Let me make this clear. I do not think this is a bad movie at all. I rewatched it right before Dial of Destiny premiered, and I thought this is a fun, enjoyable Indiana Jones movie right off the bat. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg have a magic to them that you can't really find anywhere else. And when they work together, it's always fun, exciting to see. It's really well shot in the first 2 acts of the movie, especially with a recurring cinematographer from Steven Spielberg's movies. And adding to that, Harrison Ford is still just as good as ever as Indiana Jones, and I love that the story of Crystal Skull revolves around him trying to reconcile with his son, who he's meeting for the first time, played by Shia LaBeouf as Mutt. And bringing back Marion was a great choice. I love Marion and Karen Allen as his character, and I love that the movie is about Indy reconciling with Marion and Mutt as they go on this adventure where they encounter the Soviets trying to find the skull of Akator and the kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So on that front, I like the story idea there. Obviously set in the 50s. It also has touches of communism and alien craze and conspiracy. And this movie explores all of that. Not to everybody's liking, but for me, I warmed up to it a lot more on my recent rewatch of it, and it still has some really fun action sequences that are entertaining, has the intensity that I love to see from Indiana Jones, and it has a really good score, some good action sequences, good performances, and it had a really beautiful ending that wraps up the story of Indiana Jones at that time, with Indy and Marion getting married, and I thought it was a beautiful ending to his character. Now, the only reason why this is at the bottom for me is because I wasn't really a big fan of the character of Mac. Out of all the characters here, Mac's the one I'm the least fond of. He betrays everybody, and that is a big point of his character, but he constantly switches allegiances, and it's hard for me to care for him. The other issue I have is, even though I warmed up to the alien stuff a lot more in Crystal Skull, I still think the 3rd act's my least favorite act of the 3. And I like when Indiana Jones have artifacts and adventures that are directly tied to history more so than something more sci-fi. So not entirely against the idea of sci-fi in Indiana Jones, but I do think in this movie it's a little bit different from the others, so I still don't mind it, but it's not entirely my favorite thing this franchise has done. And there are some moments here and there that aren't entirely the most logical, and not even Nuke the Fridge. I don't even mind that scene, actually. Not even Mutt Swing with the monkeys. It's more, how does the U.S. government just let Indy go after what happened in the first half with sightings of Soviets? That's just kind of something that stands out more. And there's some plot stuff that not the greatest. But overall, this is a very overhated movie. It's not that bad. It's still fun, enjoyable to see Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and Harrison Ford make an Indiana Jones movie where Indy faces off against the Soviets to find out where the Skull of Akator is, and so as reconciling with Marion and Mutt. So overall, least favorite Indiana Jones movie, but it is far better than even I give it credit for. In 4th place is the new guy on the block, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This movie had a really rocky production with production delays, an ever-expanding budget, Steven Spielberg stepping down at some point, and then we had a great director with James Mangold step in, and so is the fact that this came out so much later than it was originally intended to, and coming off the fact that we've already had 2 endings for Indiana Jones. I thought this movie was good. I still enjoy this movie to this day, even though I didn't love it to the degree I was hoping I was going to. But I still had a good time with Dial of Destiny nevertheless. Right off the bat, I like the idea of an Indiana Jones movie where it's set in the 60s. He's dealing with life in an age where he's retiring, and now he is on the verge of feeling as if society has moved past him, and what's his purpose in life now. And I do like this adventure they go on here. It's very different from the other four movies, has some neat little callbacks without ever being too nostalgia heavy. And I do like the dynamic between Indiana Jones and Helena in the back half of the movie. I thought the performances are great, especially from Harrison Ford, who once again shines as an older Indiana Jones. There's some good action sequences. The opening sequence, I think, is a really strong way to kick off this movie. The score by John Williams is incredible, and I liked what James Mangold tried to do with this movie to step in from Spielberg, because even though there is no other director on this earth that comes to the style of Steven Spielberg, James Mangold did a good job of trying to take this character that originated from Spielberg and Lucas and do something that he could do with it. And there's still some fun action adventure moments there, and there's some characters I do like every now and then. And in terms of how it ended the story for the third time and potentially the definitive time, I thought this was a very satisfying way to end out the story of one of my favorite characters of all time. And I do like the Archimedes dial a little bit more as the MacGuffin than I do with the Crystal Skull, because this one is more tied to history, and even though there's stuff about it I'm still a little bit split on, but I do like it and how it plays out with the story and why everybody's trying to go after it. In terms of my issues, though, I do think the villain, even though he's played really well by Mads Mikkelsen, could have been a lot better. There are some story ideas here, writing-wise, that are built up to originally, and then it feels like they're dropped. Some of the side characters aren't necessarily the most memorable or the greatest here, and so as the fact that there's stuff in the third act, similar to how I feel a little bit with Crystal Skull, where I feel like maybe it's a little too outlandish for Indiana Jones, and especially a very key moment that I wish was worked around a little bit better. And another big issue I have with Dial of Destiny is I wasn't really a big fan of how it undermines the ending of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when it came to the success of that movie and how it handles the relationship between Indy, Marion, and Mutt. But as it stands, even though Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny isn't a top 3 Indiana Jones movie, it is one that I enjoyed. It was nice to see this character for the last time. Harrison Ford just gave it his all. And even though it is a flawed movie, I still liked Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. In third place is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. This movie is so fun. It's extremely well paced. Not a single boring moment happens. I love Short Round. Indy and Short Round are one of my favorite Indiana Jones pair-ups for an Indiana Jones movie. The action sequences here, especially in the third act, are exciting. They're memorable, and they're so gritty, and I really like it while still having the fantasy, fun Spielberg magic to it. And I really like the story about Indy, Short Round, and Willie, and they have to save the group of children that have been taken by a thuggy cult from Mola Ram, and so as find the stones and give them back to the village. And right off the bat, it's just a really fun movie. It never loses steam. It's really well directed yet again, and I really liked a lot of these characters, and I love the horror elements too, especially in scenes where Indy and Shoran and Willie are in a really dangerous spot. They might die there.
We are going to die!
And this is by far the darkest and the most horror-centric Indiana Jones movie of the 5, and I really like it for that. It stands out amongst the movies, and I love that feeling where every second you'll have a scene that makes your skin crawl. And I love that a lot, and then it has a really satisfying third act and resolution.
You know what? He's crazy!
Molaram, prepare to meet Kali in hell!
That once again has all the highs I love from Indiana Jones, and all around it's just a fun movie. Some issues I have with Temple of Doom include the fact that I don't think Willie's that great of a character. She's by far a character who's annoying and screams a lot, and although she's played very well by Kate Capshaw, I don't think her character was that great, and she's one of my least favorites in terms of the main protagonist supporting characters. And then there's some bits here that feel like it's a little bit outlandish how some of these characters have survived all of these things, because it does introduce things that a lot of people love to give negative feedback for Crystal Skull for, Nuke the Fridge, and how do these characters survive certain things. This movie has a little bit of it in Temple of Doom, and so is the fact that I've never really bought into why this movie is a prequel, considering how it lines up with Raiders of the Lost Ark. So small things like that definitely hold it back from being higher up than where it is. But overall, I love Temple of Doom. It's fun. Love the horror nature of it. I like the dynamic between Indiana Jones and Short Round and the story. And even though it's the darkest one of the 5 movies, it's still action-packed and a whole lot of fun. In second place is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This and what's at number 1, I'm always back and forth on. I think both of them are 10 out of 10 A+ movies. Last Crusade, I think, is just an excellent sequel, and this is by far the funniest movie in the series, thanks to the pitch-perfect dynamic between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery as Henry Jones Sr. and Indiana Jones. Their dynamic is so fun. It's a beautiful father-son story about Indiana Jones trying to find the Holy Grail, and he's in a race against time to stop the Nazis from getting it, all while teaming up with his father, who has this big obsession with the Holy Grail, and they try to get to it first. Right off the bat, I love the opening. It has one of my favorite openings for an Indiana Jones movie with a young Indiana Jones, how he gets the hat, how he gets the scar on his chin, how he uses the whip for the first time, and even how he develops his fear of snakes. It does so much to develop and give us really good ideas and reasons as to how Indiana Jones becomes the man that he ends up becoming. And I love it. He's played really well by a young River Phoenix. And then the transition from young Indiana Jones to Harrison Ford Indiana Jones, I also think is a perfect transition. The score by John Williams, what can I say? It's an incredible score, and it's just so well-paced and action-packed. And even though Raiders of the Lost Ark is definitely a very adventurous movie with a whole lot of heart to it, I think this is the most heartfelt Indiana Jones movie of the 5, because his dynamic with his father is just fantastic. One of my favorite duos in a movie. And the Nazis, once again, we see them get beat up, and it's so fun to watch it happen. And this movie also has some of my favorite action set pieces in the franchise, with Indiana Jones on the tank, which is nerve-wracking and intense. And it's just so fun, and I love Sala, and so has Marcus Brody. This is just such a fun adventure all around with some great humor, and I love the third act so much. And I think this is my favorite third act out of all 5 Indiana Jones movies, with so much heart. Indiana Jones at his most active as a protagonist in the climax of the movie, and so as having beautiful moments with Indiana's father like this.
Indiana? Let it go. It's beautiful!
The search for the Holy Grail was a fun, great adventure for Indiana Jones, and I love the mysticism, fantasy elements of these adventures that they go on with Indiana Jones. And this is easily, out of all 3 Indiana Jones movies, that serves as the ending of the character, this, Crystal Skull, and Dial of Destiny, this is still my favorite one. It's super rewatchable, funny, action-packed, marvelously directed by Spielberg, and it has a great dynamic from Harrison Ford and Sean Connery. That Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade is a masterful Indiana Jones movie, and by far my second favorite. But coming in at first place is the one that started it all, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not only is this my favorite Indiana Jones movie, but this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it sits on my top 10. It's a masterful movie from Steven Spielberg, as he and George Lucas came together and created this character, who is one of my favorites of all time and my favorite role that Harrison Ford has ever portrayed. And I love the opening, just establishing this character to know what exactly he can do, what he's capable of, and how he always finds a way to get himself out of dangerous situations. And Harrison Ford is just amazing as his character. He's charming, witty, smart, resourceful, and cunning. And I love his dynamic with Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood, one of my favorite romances in film history. I love the theme for Indy and Marion, and so as the fact that this is exactly what I think of when I think of an adventure movie. It's the quintessential adventure story. With Indiana Jones, he tries to go find the Ark of the Covenant, and he teams up with Marion, a former flame of his, as they go on a race against time to stop the Nazis and Belloc getting it first. And it is exactly what I love about these movies. It's funny when it needs to be, even though Last Crusade's the funnier movie, but it's action-packed, has some incredible set pieces where I still think to myself, how were they able to pull this off? It still has some incredible visual effects to this day. And so it's having some good story moments and great characters that are so compelling. And this is one of the best paced movies of all time. It never gets boring. Every single second counts as Indiana Jones and Marion Ravenwood are trying to get to the Ark of the Covenant. And the story along the way is compelling. It is a flawless story that is masterfully directed by Steven Spielberg. And so as just everything they go for in this movie, with Indiana Jones beating up Nazis and using his skills to solve clues and go find the Ark and go on this fun adventure. This isn't just my favorite Indiana Jones movie, it's my favorite adventure movie, and it's my favorite movie from Steven Spielberg. So this is a movie I adore, and every time I watch an Indiana Jones movie, I always pop on Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it birthed one of my favorite franchises of all time. So in the end, love this movie, and in first place is Raiders of the Lost Ark. So yeah, that's my ranking of the Indiana Jones franchise from least favorite to favorite. What's your ranking of the movies? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to know your ranking. Stay tuned for some upcoming videos I have planned very soon. I'm going to be giving out a review for Barbie at some point, and soon also a review for Oppenheimer, which I'm so excited to see now that we're in the era and week of Barbenheimer. So stay tuned for all that fun stuff coming away very soon. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So please go there while you're at it. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.